Good evening. All right, so let's get started with the session for today. So the session is on quant phobia, or rather maths phobia. And the timing of the session, if you look at it, is very, very critical, keeping in mind, keeping in mind the test that we're going to have very soon. Many of the students, test takers, who are going to take this test next week around might be having few doubts in their head, right? Some kind of last minute tips that you might be looking for. So today's session is all about that. Also, this session will be of use also for the students who would be taking up the test not this season but the next season, next exam season. Because overall, in this session, we shall be talking about, I'll just quickly share the outline with you. Let me start with that. So the basic theme of today's session is how do we convert this phobia, fear, into focus, right, attention, preparation, which ultimately results in better scoring. So how is relevant, quant preparation relevant in that particular aspect? Let's get started. So as I said, I'll quickly be sharing the outline for today's session. So we shall be talking about math phobia, the quant phobia, and what is the reality of it, right? Why do so many students seem to struggle in this particular area of the test? And what's the reality? Let's try to also pay attention to that. Why students fear quant? Possible reasons for that, and what could be possible measures taken at the student's end to overcome this fear. We shall be spending some time on that. Right after that, I would be giving you a brief idea about how is the mathematics asked, tested in various law entrance tests. We have a host of it, right? Host of these tests. Of course, I'll not be picking up all of them, but the major ones, some of the major ones. Understanding quant in CLAT particularly. What is actually tested? So basically, what are the things that you should be prepared for? What you should be knowing for? Of course, it's not the higher math which is being tested. So you don't want higher level mathematics. Rather, you need deeper understanding of the concepts. For example, if I say Arvind is 20% more than Bharat. So what does this 20% mean? Whom does it direct to? Is it Arvind or Bharat? So that kind of understanding would be sufficient, I say, as far as the quantitative techniques section in CLAT is concerned. Focus on concepts. So as I said, some remedial steps. What are those? So focusing on concepts and practicing the DI sets. So here in CLAT, it's not DI, actually it's QT, quantitative techniques that we have. Last minute tips. And we'll be ending the session with Q&A in case you have any further questions. If you're unable to ask the question because you're not able to attend it live, what I would suggest is on the YouTube channel that you'd be getting this video, you can always write your comments there. Now, someone from our team would look into it and respond to your queries. Let's get started. So math phobia, what's the reality that we should be aware of? So one of the most common responses from students end when someone inquires about their preparation into the math or quant section is they tend to believe that I'm bad at math, right? I just cannot do my calculations well. But I would say this is just a myth because with very little efforts, right, in the right direction, you can actually perform the mathematical, what do we say, the techniques, the process the procedures that we need to crack an exam like CLAT and other such exams. Very, very little effort is required. So, thus, having this blanket statement that I am bad at math and continuing to believe in it, right, is nothing more than a myth, right? It's just that maybe we have been thinking about it, accepting it for so long that it has stayed so strongly with us, but it's nothing more than this. So my question to you is, can you add, can you multiply, can you divide, can you find ratio and maybe find percentages? Now, if you're able to do this much, you can pretty well solve almost all the types of questions that have been coming in CLAT for the past 2 years. So thus, don't think of the math in terms of, okay, I don't know how to solve a quadratic. No, maybe you don't even need to know that as far as CLAT is concerned. So CLAT, you need very basic stuff, and I'm sure you're good with that. So if you're good with this, I think we need to get rid of this thought from our head. Okay. Also, this fear of math or quant is on account of some really, really negative past experiences that we had. In the sense, maybe in the class we didn't pay attention for some reason. And as you know, mathematics is all progressive, it's all linked. So, for example, if I understand the concept of numbers, then I can move on to the concept of inequality. If I understand inequality, then I'll be able to take it up to few other higher concepts or use this concept of inequality in the other topics of mathematics. Now, suppose you're someone who missed the track, the attention in the very first step itself. And then, of course, you'll never be able to come back in the later stages. Now, that kind of, what do we say, solidification of layers, right? So, layer after layer, we are like thinking, okay, I didn't follow this. On account of this, I didn't follow this. On account of this, I'll not follow the further topics. Now, this might lead to the conclusion that no, no, I don't like math or I'm not good at math. And I'm again repeating this, as far as CLAT is concerned, we don't need any of that high level math. However, try to improve your conceptual clarity even in the basic stuff, like for example, ratio. So if I say 2 days and 6 hours, what's the ratio of these two? So it should not be saying 1:3. So we need to have that conceptual clarity with respect to a topic like ratio. That ratio is to be calculated between like terms. So if you've taken days here, convert this to days also, right? So such, I'm just giving you one small example. I'm not trying to say that people out here would be making such mistakes, or maybe some of you might be making such mistakes. I don't know. But what I'm trying to highlight here is you need to basically solidify, right? Strengthen your basic concepts, very limited concepts. We'll try to look at those also. What's the list of concepts that we need to pay attention to? Also, one more probable reason for this math phobia could be not practicing problem solving enough. Now, what is this enough actually? Now, is it 2 problems per day? Is it 5 problems per day? Now, I would say this would vary from person to person and from time to time. So, for example, let's say I'm someone who is just starting with the course. So, probably I need to do 1 set per day. On the other hand, suppose I'm someone who has already excelled in the subject a little bit, then probably I don't need 1 set per day, probably 2, 3 sets per week would do. All right. So enough is all individualistic, I would say. It's personal. It cannot be generalized like you have to do this much or that, this number, this count. You need to decide that, right? So, but still, one of the reasons why people are scared of mathematics, if I may say so, is because they don't practice it enough. They're not spending enough time with that. One more reason for math phobia or math detesting is dislike is comparison and peer pressure. Okay, my friend is doing this well in math. Maybe I don't. I'm not really made for this, right? I don't really maybe like this subject, right? And that would be like a vicious cycle. So the moment you say, okay, I'm not doing well, you will start spending lesser time on the subject, which in turn reduces your marks more, and your friend of course, he or she is on track, they would be doing well consistently, and this peer pressure comparison will lead us into this vicious cycle that it would take several years for us to get out of it. So consciously identify that it's nothing more than that, right? So everyone will have their own pace. So as I said, one set per day or two, three sets per week is all dependent on that individual. So similarly, I would say you should also be the one deciding what is the exact requirement as far as your preparation is concerned. You need to decide that. I hope we are clear with see again, these are some of the reasons I'm saying. Some of the reasons that I could think of, I could identify in my student groups, all right, my classes, some responses that I got from students itself. So I tried to collate them all at one place. Let's quickly look at the presence of quant in the various entrance tests. CLAT is one very common test that we have. So in CLAT, this comes in the form of quantitative techniques. The section name is this. Now, number of questions that we get is around 12. It could vary, but roughly you may say the weightage is around 10% of the paper. So out of 120 questions, you get around 12. It's around 10, but it may change. Be ready for that. One unique thing about this CLAT quantitative techniques is the questions here are based on passages. And the passages with a lot of data about working hours, data about wage rates, data about infant mortality rates in different countries, data about exports, imports, etc. Right? Data. Now you should be the one who is really good with reading stuff, right? Also identifying which relevant portions to focus on to answer the given question. Because generally in CLAT, you have some direct questions. The questions are not like really roundabout wherein you have to solve a quadratic first, find the roots, and then use those roots in some other equation. It's generally direct questions. So thus, since it is direct, this section is one of the most scoring sections. But as I said, you need to harness the skill of identifying the relevant portions. Now, if you have done that, if you're good with that, then of course, this will be one of the scoring areas for you. It's something like this here. You get 10 questions, 12 questions, and the amount of time you'll have to spend is probably like 8 minutes, 6 minutes, depending on your speed, 10 minutes, depending on your speed. And the best thing about quant is, you know what the answer is, right? It's not about guesswork. ILET, one more very popular test, no quant section. SLAT, right? Symbiosis. So in symbiosis test, it's a time test basically, right? In this, the quant section is there, questions from quant is there, but it's part of the reasoning section. It's clubbed with the reasoning section. Number of questions is approximately 10. In this, you generally get to see questions from your percentage, ratio, averages, simple arithmetic, that is. And it's clubbed, as I said, clubbed with reasoning topics. Next is Maharashtra CT. The section name is called Mathematics, right? So this is the 5-year program that generally students go for. Number of questions in this section is 10. Based on all simple see, in law entrance tests, the math is never high level. None of the tests that I've seen is high level. It's basic maths. But you need to be sound with your concepts, right? Really clear with your concepts. So these are topics, some of topics: percentage, profit loss, time and work, etc. Now, similarly, in CLAT also, we can get questions from P&L. We generally get questions from percentages. Maybe in the past years, if you'll see, questions from mensuration have also come. Right? Time and work, time and distance topics have also come. So please be mentally prepared for such occurrences, right? Don't be surprised if at all some new area makes a debut, right, in the test. Be fine, try to understand it. If you can solve it well, okay. Otherwise, go for the next set. See how much can you solve, but always look at it. What is the amount of time that you have spent in answering a given number of questions? These are all direct questions, direct formula-based questions, so that's not really critical, I would say. Understanding quant as far as CLAT is concerned, what are the unique aspects of this section? Passage-based questions. Thus, here we may as well say your solving ability is equivalent to your reading ability, identifying ability. Questions asked from simple arithmetic topics like ratio, percentage, averages. Easy to score, scoring area, if you can do the following. What are those? Identify relevant portions of the passage based on the question. If the question is talking about, let's say, casual workers only, so out of all the list of workers that we have in the passage, you should focus only on the casual workers, not on the permanent workers, contractual workers, etc. No, only on this particular portion. Know the basic concepts, get them right, because if you get them not with confidence, if you don't understand them with confidence, you might go wrong, you might make some silly mistakes. Be okay with approximate calculations. In fact, this is required because sometimes we tend to over calculate. So for example, if someone asks us what is 288 by 17, suppose, now we might tend to over calculate and give a very specific answer like, okay, it is AB point CD, something like this. We try to give answer to 2 decimal places. That's not required in exam. Look at the option choices and decide. So don't over calculate. Try to make use of the option elimination method that we have, which works really well sometimes. Cramming of formula, thankfully, in this test is not really required. Now, what you need is solid basic concepts. You need to have idea of basic concepts. Cramming of formula doesn't really help. It's not really required also. Sorry. Practice questions. You still have some time. People are going to take test next week. You still have time. Please try to practice as many questions from possible from this area. That will improve your confidence, which is very much the need of the hour, we can say, at the stage in which we are in. It's very much required. In the test, start with an easier section because you would be free to start with any area of your choice. Start with the section that you find the easiest. It could be the language section, it could be logical reasoning, it could be probably your legal reasoning, right? Whatever, reasoning or legal reasoning. Always be attentive to the usage of the words that we have in the test, right? So, for example, sometimes the question is framed on the basis of saying that the number of workers who work for more than 4 hours. So, I need to be careful that when he says more than 4 hours, I cannot take 4 hours or not less than. So, when he says not less than, that means greater than or equal to, that means here 4 is a possibility. Focus on units if they are given, right? If, for example, the salaries of individuals is given in thousands, they need to be careful. Or if it is given in lakhs, right? Or GDP of country is given in millions of dollars, right? So you need to be careful of units if they are given. Now, what I would be doing is, before I try to wrap up the session as such, let me just check how many are actively there in the session today, because based on that I'll decide whether we will solve it. I'll give you time or not for this. Anyways, I have a small example. Now this is just your CLAT 24 paper that I've taken. This will give you an idea about what type of questions are asked in CLAT generally. So as I said, you have a passage with some data. You need to read it carefully. Mr. Das works for a construction company. He has a family, including his wife and a daughter. His total monthly income includes a salary of 9228 and a 10% HRA. So that means how much is he going to get in the month? 9,228 plus 10% of 9228. So how much is it? 10% of this? 922.8, or can I take it approximately as 923? When you add them, 28 and 23 is 51. 92 and 9 is 101. So that means his salary overall, including the HRA, is approximately 10,151 is what a student can do this calculation, right? Due to increasing inflation, he is keeping a home budget that accounts for income and expenses of the household. Out of his total monthly income, he spends 25% on food. So food is 25%. And then house rent is 18%, entertainment is 9%, and then education of child is 23%, medical expenses is 13%, and savings finally is 12%. No need to do any additional calculation. That's what I said. Don't over calculate. So for example, here some of the students might have a tendency of, okay, let me calculate this. What if these are being asked? Now, if they are asked in the question, we'll calculate it then, not beforehand, right? Don't over calculate. This is some sample questions. How much money remains for other expenses after HRA, sorry, house rent and savings? So how much was house rent? House rent was 18%. Savings was 12%. So together is how much? 30%. So that means out of this total salary, 30% is used up in house rent and savings. How much is remaining? 70%. So my answer here will be 70% of 10,151, I may say, right? 10,151. Now, how do we calculate 70%? So the method will be you calculate 10% first. So what is 10% value? 1015.1. So if you look at it, it's around 1015. So what will be 70%? You do into 7. How do you do into 7 here? Notice. So can I think of this 1015 as 1000 plus 15? Now you multiply this group by 7. So 1000 into 7 is 7000. 15 into 7 is 105. So my answer should be somewhere around 7105. Now, right after this, see here, please note, I have not done the exact calculations. I have only done approximate calculations, and then I will go fetch the options. I'll search in the options. So here, if you'll see which option makes the most sense, clearly it is the third option choice. It's the closest, right? One more example. If the expenditure on food and entertainment is increased by 10%, food and entertainment is how much? Food is 25, entertainment is 9. So together it's 34%. So 34%, whatever was the value, don't calculate it. This goes up by 10%. Now what is 10% of 34? 3.4. So that means the expenses here will go up by 3.4%. So it will become 37.4%. Anyways, what's the question? What will be the new percentage of savings in the same monthly salary? What was the savings right now? 12. When everything else was sorted, it was 12. 13 is there, 25 is there, 80, everything was fixed. Then it's 12. But now I understand in this question, the expenses are going up by 3.4. Hence, can I say savings will come down by 3.4% exactly? So my new savings percentage will be 12% minus 3.4%. 12 minus 3 is 9. 9 minus 0.4 is 8.6%. So option choice B. See, this is the type of question that we have from the actual CLAT paper, right? This is the actual CLAT paper, and this is the type of question that we have. So as you see, questions are not really complex. I hope you are in agreement with this. So if you have the basic knowledge about percentage increase, I think you could have answered both the questions here. There were few other questions on the same in the same line. Of course, I've not taken all of them. This slide is only to give you an idea about what type of questions can we expect next week, or for the students who are going to take it next year. This was one more example. There is one very important learning that we have from this particular set. It was firstly very long set running into several hundred words. So in such set, what my advice would be is, if you get such a set this year also, don't read it completely. Don't read it, because you would realize after reading it that most of the set won't even make sense with respect to the question solving. What I would suggest is, before you go for the set, go for the questions once. So one example here. If a female casual worker earns 200 rupees per hour, what is the hourly wage of male casual worker, given that male casual worker earn 48% more than female casual workers? Now, tell me one thing, for answering this question, do we even need the passage? And this is, by the way, not a made up question. This is an actual CLAT question. I hope you all agree. We don't need reading the passage. There were quite a few such questions. So if you spend time in reading this long passage, you will end up wasting a lot of time. Don't do that. So if the passage is extremely long, go via the questions. So here, 200 rupees per hour. 48% would mean what? So if you look at this, 1% is how much? 2. So 48% will be how much? 2 into 48, 96 rupees. So that means the wage rate of male casual worker will be 96 rupees more. So it's going to be clearly 296. A very, very direct, simple calculation based question. So I hope we are clear with the idea that I'm trying to share here. So sometimes it is not really a good idea to go through the entire set and then solve the questions. Sometimes when the information is huge, the volume of data is just too much, it's better to go via the questions. I hope we are clear with this. So these were the two examples that we got last year and just wanted to share to you. So just to wrap up today's session, so last minute tips is what I would like to share. Keep this in mind, essentially the students who are going to take CLAT next week. Begin the paper with comfortable sections. Remember this, right? So don't start with quant, for example, if it's not your strong area, right? Because if the start is bumpy, right, generally the journey is not going to be really, really fruitful. Revise the concepts, keep revising, right? So the important topics that we get to see in CLAT are these arithmetic based topics, basically. So keep revising them. Focus on time management. Be absolutely brutal with that. Don't get stuck with any question. If you're unable to solve a question, feel free to skip that. Move to the next question. Go for two-round approach, possible. For example, in round one, go for all the questions that you think you can solve with ease in a matter of few seconds or maybe a minute. Do them in the first round. Now, for second round, you leave out those questions which might take little extra time. Remember, accuracy is more important than the attempts, because in a test like a competitive exam like CLAT, where negative answers, so right, the wrong answers will be met with negative marking, you need to be extra careful with respect to your accuracy. So it's better to attempt only 10 questions and get them right rather than attempting 20 and getting 10 wrong. All right, this is always better. So remember, accuracy is more important than attempts. All right. Take a few mocks before you go for the actual test. So try to build up the stamina, right, till you get to the D-Day, the final day. So with this, I have come to the end of the session. In case you have any questions, so I see we have only nobody right now. So what I would suggest is you may ask your questions in the form of comments. Please feel free to ask your queries, and someone from our team would get back to your queries. So with that, we have come to the end of the session. Thank you, and all the very best. Do take the test with a cool head, right? Your month's efforts, all right, your year's effort would ultimately boil down to these 2 hours of the test. Take them little seriously, right? Be very, very careful while taking the test. Avoid making silly mistakes, right? Don't overlook information. Don't misread, right? Take care of the overall process, right? Because it would be very, very critical for future of all, right? For everyone's future. So please take care of this. So once again, thank you and all the very best.